Madam Clerk, could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Christine Adamczak. Here. Councilmember Linda Hammer. Here. Councilmember Gerald Kaminsky. Councilmember Brian Nowak.
Present.
Councilmember Brian Pilarski.
Present.
Councilmember Richard Rusiniak.
Here.
Supervisor Diane Benchkowski.
Here. Okay, we have 7 members present tonight. It's nice to see all of you. Haven't seen all of you in a long time. Some of you I've run into, but thank you for being here. Appreciate it. First items we need to review are the town board resolution items. Madam Clerk, is there any way you can put them up?
Yeah, one moment. Not even sure why we got that. Actually lost video. Hold on. You're gonna have to give me 1 second here.
All right, well, maybe, well, I wanted to talk to you about the first item here, so. We're just waiting so I could have the town clerk put up the resolution item so everybody can see what we're talking about. Oh, okay, good. Thank you. So if you scroll down, are we doing resolution 2 first for the police sergeant? Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. So you're going to read that separately and we'll vote on that and then we'll introduce the sergeant, okay? And we don't have any public hearings tonight, okay. And then we'll go back then to the consent agenda will be resolution 1, transfer of funds. Any questions on that? Resolution 2 will be the warrant. Any questions? Comments? Resolution 3 will be a call for public hearing, rezoning of 3705 Harlem Road from neighborhood services to retail business district. Any questions on that? Nick or Dan? Oh, yeah. So Nick and Dan Young are both here. If anybody wanted to ask them anything. Number 4 would be the call for public hearing for the Town of Cheektowaga Community Development Block Grant application. Rachel's here tonight, and she's giving us a different presentation, but we're just calling for the public hearing. Then Resolution 5 is to modify the preliminary budget for 2022. And I guess I do have some questions on it. As we go down the list here. So we're adding funds for the Justice Court for, what was the reasoning for that? I think it's Adamzak, Pilarski, Kaminsky, and Hammer.
That was basically to upgrade some of the part-timers that are still making under $13 an hour.
No, that's not
Is this the funding for the drug court?
As the drug court, yes.
So hiring this will cover the salary of a, okay,
The part-time.
part-time drug court coordinator, okay. I'm fine with that. What about the professional services?
We'd like to add that back in. So we want to amend this resolution and put the professional services back in for $27,000.
Okay, Madam Clerk, I guess when we vote. Well, there's 4 of you on the motion, so I would think all of you would have to. There are?
I said there should have been all 6 of us on here.
You can, because we're in the work
Yeah,
session.
we're all in
That's-
agreement. We're all in agreement to amend that.
Okay, so we're adding back $27,000 for professional services,
But so that negative 27,000 should be a positive, correct?
or just eliminate
It's
it.
just stricken from this amendment. It would change the other numbers in the overall budget, correct?
Mm-hmm. And then you're adding in,
Can you
Money-
please confirm what you just said? Is that a plus 27,000?
no, I think they're taking it right out. They're striking.
Correct, we're
striking
striking it from removing it, so we're going to.
From the resolution.
Okay.
And then adding money to the law regular payroll, another $3,000. I know I had set aside some funding for that. Does anybody want to explain that? I had already put in money for the law department payroll, but, okay, so you're taking that from 6% to 10%? Legal secretary. And then adding more money for the deputy town attorney from 6 to 10. Town attorney from 3% to 6%, and the municipal administrative assistant from 6 to 3%? So you're taking money from one person and giving it to another. That's it.
That other person pretty much got raises every year right along that surpassed the other employees in the attorney's office.
And then you're deducting highway superintendent regular payroll.
There is a personnel regular payroll in the addition of 30,000. So I don't, if the 4 that are sponsors, if one of the 4 of you can explain exactly what that was for. I think I know why, but I don't want to speak out of turn here or incorrectly.
So you're adding 30,000? It says 3,000. You're taking 3,942 deduction.
Personnel regular payroll, between law regular payroll and highway superintendent.
Oh, personnel, I'm sorry, yeah. All right, there's the personnel regular payroll. So I had put in 30,000 for possibly another employee after 6 months, but you're adding another 30? I don't know where this stemmed from. Because I have it in the budget right now, for the personnel. Can you use your microphone, Brian?
Well, I'm not a mover on this, so,
Mhm.
I mean, I can't, I
I
don't
was
know,
just
I don't know
wondering-
precisely what the intent is. I would assume it has to do with funding the other 6 months of the position in 2022, but maybe the movers have a different idea in mind with that 30,000.
Councilmember Adamzak, can you use your microphone? No? Okay. So nobody can explain the $30,000? Because I originally had $30,000 in,
For a 6-month.
Is that's for the, I'm going back and checking my email, that's for the personnel department, the
Yes.
assistant coordinator of employee relations? And
Yes.
for a full year, it's 60. And you had down
Right.
for 6 months.
do you think we're ready to make that decision now? Or, I mean, we just hired the coordinator 5 months ago for, so,
Diane, we were gonna put a person on for 6 months, so when this 6-month period is over, we need the money in there to cover it.
no, the intent was to wait 6 months and look at hiring one if we need one, because the coordinator is still new and kind of getting policies and procedures in place. So I wanted to give him some more time. You want to hire somebody right off the bat, like for the whole year? My plan was wait 6 months and then let's revisit it, so that's why I budgeted for it. So do you
Correct.
think we need one immediately?
I think either direction we go with it, we have to plan as if it's full-time. It's better, if we're not planning for a full year and we end up going a full year, it's not budgeted. Versus if we do go
No,
with the
but
6.
do you need it right now for a full year? Can you wait a few more months and?
I think it's definitely needed right now, for the simple fact is we're dealing with grievances, we're dealing with updating our policies and procedures. I mean, that department right now, that, Horseman, he's spread thin right now on this, and it's showing that with everything going on right now.
Okay, so we'll add in the $30,000 you want to add in for that, for a full year. Okay. Then it was a negative $3,942 for highway superintendent regular payroll.
That, I do believe, if I'm correct, it was not giving the deputy highway superintendent a raise.
Okay, and what about
But
the
if I'm correct on that, though. so it-
secretary to the highway
Correct,
superintendent?
that's, I was just gonna say, I think that needs to be amended, because I think they're both lumped in under that one line item. So how could we separate that? on the-
So right now, there was money taken out, so the deputy highway superintendent wouldn't get a pay increase, but everybody else is getting one. Okay, just trying to wrap my head around that. Was there any reasoning for that?
He would have surpassed the highway superintendent with this raise, his payroll.
Oh, okay, so,
I didn't feel
what about me? I'm in charge of the entire town, and there's a lot more people
Diane.
that make more than me.
You were elected at a certain salary, as was I. We don't get raises.
Exactly. So why would you worry about somebody but you're giving people raises in this budget over mine, like my salary.
And over mine and
Mhm.
over everybody else's. I mean,
So how
the
can,
job is what the job is, and some people do a lot more work than others, and we don't feel that he should be making more than the superintendent of highways.
interesting, okay. Okay, then you're taking out the $43,850 for a parks in their payroll, was it?
That would take out funding for a new position that was proposed in the budget.
Okay, so you're taking that right out of the budget, okay. Even though they need a cleaner. You don't think that they need extra cleaning with COVID?
When we talked with them, they said they were fine. When we talked with them, they
Who's-
said they were fine.
So did you
for-
have a meeting? Like, how many people were at the meeting?
No, we did not have a meeting.
So who's
We
we?
call, excuse me, when one person called and we talked with them, John said that he was in not immediate need of a cleaner. That's why it came out.
Okay. Because I thought John was short, and we do have additional needs because of COVID. And the youth regular payroll, you want to add $5,000. And the reason for that? I had given, I see here you want to adjust the salary for the Director of Recreation, who already is getting a 3% salary increase, and you want to add another 5,000 on top of it? Anybody have any insight?
I'm just going to say yes, and I think the members of the board know why, and I'm not going to publicly litigate it.
Well, it's just based on title, Brian. We could definitely talk about it. I mean, the budget is open for everybody's discussion. Anybody can see the budget.
I'm in favor of adding $5,000 to her salary, and other members of the board are as well.
Yeah, that 5,000 was added for the Director of Youth and Rec, and I know when I overseen that department, I put in every single year for a pay increase, and it has never happened. So this year, we're making that happen.
I mean, traditionally, I can see if somebody's taken on more duties. We've put a couple increases in there for somebody that's taken on extra departments or whatever, but we've been slow with youth and rec. We've had less programming. We've had 2 pools closed this past year, the year before. I'm
So-
sorry, what was that, Rick? Oh, she always got a raise, absolutely. Rick, I never left the Director of Recreation out as far as a salary increase. Across the board, everybody got the same percentage-wise. Brian Kraus, can you confirm? Never has she been excluded from getting a raise, and there is a raise in my budget for this year also. But I'm asking, so you wanted to add the extra 5, but
I think also the problem is when she took the Director of Youth and Rec, her position was not filled. So now she's got a lot more on her plate, not just the Director of Youth and Rec. Now she still has all the duties that she was doing before she went to Director of Youth and Rec.
she's got youth leaders and program leaders underneath her to do some of that work also. And she
Youth and Rec
understood,
is a very busy department.
well, so are we all busy. I'm just wondering why this extra $5,000 for one department head, and then some others are taken away. So then we go to the general fund. Can we move that up a little bit? Think the revenues. So you want to take the American Rescue Plan revenues out of this budget for the $43,850?
Yes, that would have funded the park's regular payroll situation. So now that that's being reduced by 43,850, we don't have to use the one-time shot American Rescue money to fund that recurring expense.
But then you're going to use more appropriated fund balance to balance this portion of the budget.
Correct. We're advised that there's enough in the fund balance to do that, and, I mean, I get what you're doing right now, you're questioning line by line and saying, why is this person, why are you saying they get a raise and not this one? But we could have done the exact same thing when you first put out this budget.
Yeah,
Why is this one
absolutely
at
you could have.
5%? Why is that one at 10?
Mm-hmm.
I think some are at 15. So, I mean, we could do this big circle game here. But also, in addition to trying to throw at us to say, oh, now you're using fund balance to balance your budget, you've done that every single budget you've put forward. So now it's a problem when you try to
Well,
use rescue funds
Yes,
for
and Jerry
reoccurring
Kaminsky has
causes.
voted no on those budgets because he didn't want to use fund balance, and now he wants to use it.
You may vote no on this budget.
No, he's made the motion, he's part of this resolution, he's making the motion to use the fund balance, and that's why I'm kind of questioning it. And when I look at, since I've taken over as supervisor, I have decreased the amount of money we're using in fund balance. Of course you use fund balance every year to balance your budget, because this is money that's left over from the previous year. And we're trying to get our funds up back to where it was, well, actually, 2021 was the first year that we used a little extra because of COVID for the 2021 budget. We used 6.65 million. But before that, 2020, we only used 6.1, 2019, 6.6, 2018, 6.89, but then I go back to like 2016, which was not my budget, it was the previous supervisors, you were using $203,000. Excuse me? Can we hear? Can we hear what you're saying?
I said, we're taking out we're adding 13, no, fund balance is 30,600. How much did your budget have in it? I don't remember the number that you used. Fund balance.
Well, I know it's more than, it's an additional $30,000 that you want to use.
Correct. But I mean, I don't think it's, it's not like we're taking hundreds of thousands.
Okay, here it is. So mine, for that portion, was $5,550,000. And then you want to, I'm sorry, $5,520,000, and then you want to take another 30.
Yeah, it's not really gonna make much money.
But it's still dipping into it, is what I'm saying.
So the 30,000 being used right now by the board to add in here from fund balance can very well come from the lack of events and festivals that we had. There goes 30,000 right there, so
Mhm.
it could be earmarked towards this.
So, all right, let's go on to the Consolidated Sewer District Appropriations. So this I'm totally confused about. So you want to add in sewer seasonal personnel, which we haven't had any since 2019, and we've been doing fine with it, and a part-time in sewer, which we haven't had anybody part-time since 2019, and let me tell you what we have done to change things up there, that they might not need these people. Is number one is we've gone to a 5-day-a-week operation. They only work Monday through Friday, whereas before they used to work 7 days a week, so it was, you needed more people to spread out and cover for vacations, et cetera. And the seasonal and part-time can only do laborers' work, so you're not going to be helping the sewer maintenance workers. And I also had, based on the department head's request, we had done some modifications to his personnel titles, so we did add more money there to his titles. For instance, in 2021, from 2021 to 2022. So we added an extra MEOA from 3 MEOAs to 4, because he had requested that. Thought it would be more conducive to the department to have an extra A. And, but in order to do that, he had 3 laborers, we took him down to 2 laborers, except an A is much more expensive than a laborer. Then we had 4 sewer maintenance workers in 2021, and we added an extra sewer maintenance worker to make it 5 this year. So that was supposed to accommodate the sewer department to be able to do their work more efficiently. So my question now is, and why do we need an additional 3 seasonals? I believe it's 3 and another part-time. Did anybody talk to sewer? How did this come about? Nobody? So nobody can come up and let me know, like, why, what was the argument, or why do you feel we need to add these seasonals and not? Rick, did you happen to talk? Did you make the suggestion? That But don't you think some of the other departments could also use help? Like, what about sanitation, for instance? Our grass pickup. We have our department heads working till 4 o'clock because they're short seasonals. And you're going to add them on to the sewer department that has been fine without the seasonals. I don't know. How did this come about then? So the sewer was the only one that asked you? And mine too. But do you understand that, well, but I thought I was by giving some. But Rick, you're not listening to me. That's why I added in another A, an MEOA. They went from 3 to 4 MEOAs to make it more efficient, so they could work on the bigger equipment. But I've added to the sewer department since 2019. So we've went from 3 MEOAs to 4 so that they could use the equipment. And we went from 4 sewer maintenance workers to 5. So I thought I was helping that way. So I guess I'm just confused why we would do this seasonals now. They can't really work on the sewer maintenance trucks. All they can do is restoration work. But we do have people that can do that also. So I didn't cut. Actually, the personnel line went from 1.15 million in 2021 because there were no raises, to 1.33 million. It's a $17,000 increase because of these changes in titles. So, I mean, do you really think it's necessary to add the seasonal in? And what, like I said, what about then sanitation? I don't see Scott Colwell here, see? Or Mark Komotek, or any sanitation guys probably know how overworked we are with the sanitation in the summer and picking up the grass. I mean, that, it seems to be a service that...
The problem is in sanitation is they put it out there, they put it on social media, they'll get some part-timers that will come in and they'll work for a week and then they don't show, they don't come back. That's what the problem in sanitation is.
Exactly. So you're wanting to fill 4 seasonal part-times just in sewer. That's going to be eating into the pool of candidates. So now you're going to have less guys applying at sanitation where they really need them, and they're going to apply for the sewer.
And the grass route is a very tough route. It's all garbage cans full of wet, heavy grass. We can't pay these people substantial wages and expect them to stay on.
So I mean, I just don't understand why you wouldn't be putting more money in for that and putting it into sewer.
We did raise the, part-times and, the part-time seasonal, the table. We're moving everything up to $14 an hour. Hopefully that'll be a little bit more of an incentive for people to apply at the town. We're paying less than fast food restaurants and everything else, and we can't keep people working.
This is probably a good time for me to bring up one additional amendment to Resolution 5, which would be to take $100,000 of appropriated from fund balance and put it forward to do just what Councilmember Hammer said, and to divvy that up into various part-time lines so we can pay a starting wage of $14 an hour for anybody hired in the town of Cheektowaga. Do I have sufficient support from the board to add that to this item here?
Yes.
Yeah, I have no, I mean, I like some of these ideas in here. I like the drug court coordinator. You know, I do support the full-time personnel, payroll, or assistant coordinator, but some of these others I don't support. And then one of them is all the seasonal and sewer, which is going to be taken away again from the pool of candidates that we really need for sanitation. Can't keep them. Well, and then the sewer office equipment.
Respectfully, we had an issue keeping folks in sanitation prior to this proposal. This isn't even in effect yet, and we already have the problem.
Yes, I agree, and it's going to be bigger.
Not necessarily, because maybe they don't want to work in sanitation. Maybe they wouldn't apply for that department anyway. We can't look at it that way.
I guess I'm confused on what exactly you're trying to do here, because to me, it just seems like you're pitting departments against departments. Sewer versus sanitation, who has enough workers, who needs more. There's no doubt in my mind that every department in this town needs more, and that was shown with the proposed budgets that they gave you. Now, if they had everything that they wanted in there, we just simply can't afford it, and that's why there's some cuts.
Exactly.
But over the years, it's been cut so much that we can't keep saying do more with less. So we need to start putting things back into this budget, whether it's workers in one department and then we slowly get to another department. But this pitting departments or department heads against each other, that's BS and only going to cause more problems within the morale of our team.
I'm just being honest here. Councilmember Pilarski, I'm just being honest here that it sounds like you were the one pitting departments by favoring sewer here and not taking into consideration the other departments that have taken some of their seasonal part-times away. And they
So-
can all use it.
So when you say me, in reality, I didn't make any of these suggestions, but I back them up. So it wasn't me, all right?
Okay.
If I had my way, I'd go to every department and say, hey, an extra $100,000 in each of your budget, how would you allocate that? Rather than let us sit up here and say what's best for those departments. This budget process is flawed, and this is one way we could try to fix it, is by going this route.
Well, you're acting like I didn't add anything into anybody's budget as far as personnel and wages and whatever, and there's an increase definitely in appropriations.
And I go back to when I first started on this board working on youth and rec budget. It's not adding money when minimum wage goes up and it catches up to other employees and now they're at minimum wage, or you have to automatically put that increase in there for minimum wage because it's mandated. That's not adding. We're forced to do that. So what we need to do is the right thing and keep increasing pay straight across the board for our town employees.
And we have.
To Councilman Pilarski's point, something we've got to keep in mind is that inflation exists everywhere. The town of Cheektowaga isn't exempt from it. The Bureau of Labor Statistics said price levels are up 5.4% from September this year to September a year ago. You know, part of the issue we're having in terms of wages on the low end of the scale is that, you know, the Councilmember Hammer mentioned, you've got the food places, McDonald's, Taco Bell, all these places. They're paying $15, $16 an hour to bring folks in. And you've got that, and you've got an issue, and NBC ran an article, 4.3 million people have left the labor force. There have been article, news story after news story about the great resignation, people just deciding to give up their jobs. 100,000 child care workers aren't on the books now that were before, so you got more people deciding to stay home. It's a tighter labor market, and if you're looking for a job, you've got more flexibility and you've got more power in this labor market than you did 3 years or 4 years ago. So, you know, in terms of starting our wages out at $14 and through 2022, looking at the wage scale and all that, it's being responsive to the market. You know, we can't think that we can just pay the minimum wage or pay less than a minimum wage and that'll be good enough. In my time on the board, I had to get the votes together to pay town workers the New York State minimum wage. And in just in the last year, we had to have a discussion among ourselves to get the grass pickers for sanitation up to $14, and we're still having a struggle. So the $14 starting wage on the low end of the scale isn't the perfect fix here, but there's so much we have to balance, and at least gets us competitive on the low end of the wage scale, that instead of somebody going to Walmart who's paying $15, or Target's paying $15, or Amazon warehouse, maybe they'll come here for $1 less instead of saying, well, they're paying $2 less an hour, forget it.
So, you want to, I mean, I'm in favor of adding, like I said, extra money in the budget for the wage increases, but I'm not in favor of a lot of these other things.
Yeah, and that would come from the appropriated fund balance of $100,000. So we just had a discussion over using $30,000 of appropriated fund
Well, plus
balance,
the
and now we're in
42
favor of $100,000 of appropriated fund balance.
But you're adding another 42 from the Consolidated Sewer District fund balance. You see that?
That is part of this resolution, yes.
42 from there, 30 from the general, and now 100,000.
Which you said you were in favor of, yes,
Well-
and I agree with you.
But I'm not in favor of using that other amount for all these increases.
So would you like to make the motion to increase the tax levy by $100,000?
No.
So if we're not going to use the fund balance and we're not going to increase the tax levy and you're in favor of increasing the wages, where do we get the money?
Exactly. Maybe we need to relook at some of the non-union personnel that you want to give a huge raise to, that we could be giving it to somebody else.
If you run the math here, we pretty much have to cut out everything else to fund it. Literally everything else. That means no drug court. That means no to everything else that's here. It would cut out literally everything. We wouldn't even have the money for the drug court, and I think we all want to have the money for the drug court.
Well, all I can say is I thought I presented a very responsible budget to the town board and the residents and taxpayers of the town of Cheektowaga without cutting services, and also keeping the tax levy at only a little over $2,000 townwide.
When price levels are going up 5% year over year, and the amount of money that we're appropriating is not going up that amount. I mean, we have 1.7 million that, in the increase in appropriations. About $1 million comes from sales taxes, and that goes into the highway fund. And then the other 700,000 is to catch up on equipment purchases, like with the Packers for sanitation, that we should have been taken care of in the past. I mean, so we get into this thing about it's a responsible budget, and you know, we're covering all the expenses we need to. Materials are getting more expensive. I mean, even if we get into paving roads and that, I mean, it's getting harder to find things, and when you find things, the wait times are longer. The shipping costs are going up. The raw material costs are going up. So, yeah, you might have increased the line a certain dollar amount or a certain percentage, but you're getting less of that stuff. You're doing less with less. And not you personally, but the town as a whole.
Okay, so did you make your amendment, whatever you want to do to this resolution?
I did. I offered an amendment to use 100,000 in an appropriated fund balance to put into various lines to get starting wages up to $14. Councilmember Kaminsky seconded, and
We're all on board.
Okay. Okay, Madam Clerk, could we go to the,
before we go on to the next one, can I have my name added to resolution number 5 in light of the amendments?
Can we please clarify the amendments to this resolution?
So professional services for $27,000 is going back into the budget, just getting scratched off that
Strike.
amendment.
Correct.
We're good on the personnel piece because it's already in there, like Brian Kraus said. And then $100,000 for wage increases from the fund balance. And I have a question on the budget.
No,
and
100. So the 3661 is going to 100? Is that what you're telling me?
No, it's going to 136.
13661,
Yeah.
just confirm.
Technically, now, because we cut the,
It's going up. Yeah. Correct. And Brian, I think I asked you this one time about the budget, but in this budget, I don't see anywhere for planned increases for if we negotiate the contract with the TCA. How does that work? Because honestly, I mean, we'd like to wrap this up and finalize things, but if it's not budgeted in there, how do we address that?
and I agree, let's hope we can get a contract for all these hard workers. So let's go on to Resolution 6, adoption of the ad valorem budget for 2022.
pipe and stuff, we need them for next year, so we need to order now. Are we gonna be using any of the American Rescue Plan funding?
That's a great question, Lynn, that's something we should talk about as a group, we have that capital please, correct, yeah.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, absolutely, there's a couple different avenues we have that we could pull the trigger on, but again, I think we need to pull that trigger here sooner than later, because we want to have that product available to us next year. And I don't know how it's gonna impact the global chain, especially with the passage of the infrastructure bill last weekend.
Yeah.
That's also gonna impact, it got, crazy because of COVID, got crazier with the ARPA money hitting the street, I think it's gonna get even crazier now with that money eventually hitting the street come next spring. So I think it's in our best interest to be proactive and at least line up some product. We have the places stored between highway and our sewer maintenance yard that, again, when we decide how to prioritize these products, these projects, we have the product to necessitate, to construct them.
And I do suggest that we do use that ARPA funding. Correct, Brian Kraus? We can use that on sewer, whether it's drainage or sanitary. So if we're going to buy that product, we need to use that funding, help offset the expense onto the taxpayers and less bonding also.
Sure.
So based on what we decide how we want to go in, but there's still some things outstanding from this year that you want to complete next year. Do you have all the products and equipment to do those? It was part of Phase 3 was Angela, Roxborough, Smallwood, Claudette, Mormon.
That's the paving with the double.
Yeah, but and I have drainage here. You did it on Temple, correct already, or is it?
We did it on Temple, we did it on Jamaica, Monterey, Algiers, and some of the other streets that we're gonna pave next year, correct, yeah. And those streets that you mentioned there, yeah, that's gonna be a product that we have.
And you have that already?
Correct,
And it just has to be done next year?
correct, yeah.
Okay. And then there's still some outstanding things that have to be done in the Phase 4, the Sandy Vern Lane area.
Correct, yeah.
So you have to finish up the paving and,
That's correct, yeah. The last piece of pipe was put in the ground today, as a matter of fact, in that neighborhood. So by the end of the week, we should have all the concrete, blacktop restoration done, topsoil work done with milling and overlay that happened next spring.
okay. So I think we need to let the residents know, we planned on this year, but because of the shortage of things, it's not complete till next year, the paving. So it's going to be a little messy this winter, and hopefully that'll help with some of the problems they've had with the flooding. Okay. And then there were other areas too. Well, let's look at your list for 2022 real quick. So I have the 2021 summary versus the 2022. Originally, we were going to do the south side of French Road, but we thought, I see you took that off the list for 2022?
It's actually done, if you read this morning's email, that
Oh, there.
item number 3 from last year, as well as item number 4, is still in queue. So that was last night's email, those 9 areas are the areas that we need to discuss and prioritize which ones we want to address.
Still, okay.
In what order.
And like Pat said, we don't want to take too much on, because then we don't complete the project too, so. And then I see on the new list, I think it's a good idea, Wallace, Lemoyne area, the road reconstruction
Recording
there.
in progress.
Uh-oh. So, but then we went on to another area, which is Raymond, and then the southwest city line. So, I mean, you're asking us for some direction? Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, again, that was our capital needs, those areas we have discussed over the last couple of years, especially the southwest section of town. New water main was put in there this year in the pavement area as well. That is what we call sewer shed number 10. We will be there in mass in 2023 to mitigate all our sanitary sewer issues as part of our consent order. So again, it's the older section of town that needs a little TLC,
Absolutely. wish we could do all these projects. I guess the one thing I did want to ask about is, we had so many residents ask about the other side of William Street. So you're on the Vern Lane side. Well, what about the other side of William Street? I think it's Garland, Helen, that side. We've got a lot of complaints about the drainage over there.
Well, again, that's an area we can target then. We were in there in mass this year. We performed over 100 sanitary sewer repairs in that neighborhood, the south side of William Street, for example. Ayers, Garland, and right.
Yes, that area,
In
absolutely.
preparation for next year's sanitary sewer work, we call that sewer shed number 9. That's on schedule for 2022. Okay, so there's, again, we've been out there, and again, we addressed a lot of concerns that have come to us when we went out there this year. I mean, that's an area that, again, we can look at. There wasn't a lot in that neighborhood with Councilmember Pilarski's questionnaire and the calls that came into your office that were forwarded through. So again, if there is concerns, those really have not been documented to us. Okay, but again, it's something we can definitely look at if we want to amend this list to add to our.
Well, I think, that, yeah, I don't know, there were a lot of complaints, even from Councilmember Pilarski's list, and some of the areas, or the complaints I had gotten. It's all in Everest, too, so, did they ever get you, I think Pat has access to Everest.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then, what about the Jessica Lane? That pipe you're gonna try to possibly,
We need to get some inspection work on
and
that.
ditch?
Clean it, televise it, see what condition that pipe is, and that's something that we can do some homework on to see what assessments need to be done in that area. Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm glad to see you have the North Transit Hill, South Transit Hill area. Anybody else have anything to add to this?
So the list you submitted to us, 1 through 9, is that in priority, or is that just random right there?
It's just in random, you know, Councilman Clark, these are areas, I put them in there as I was going through my notes, so again, as I noted in my notes in there, there's no particular order in that list, but once again, when we have a capital meeting and figure out how we can financially budget for these things, then we can pick it apart and say, hey, listen, let's go here, there, and sequence it and knock it off that.
Would you be able to send me, and possibly the rest of the board if they so choose want it, how would you rank them in priority based off of, let's say there was no funding amount, you just ranked them off a need, priority? You're the subject matter expert in it, not me, not anyone up here. So we could prioritize and say, this area appeals to me, sure, let's do it. But it may not be the biggest need in our town. So would you mind sending that to us, please?
Absolutely, anytime we'll talk, we'll get this, yeah, not a problem. Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark, basically on this last major rain event, a lot of it was caused from the leaves plugging up the DIs. I mean, everybody's raking their leaves out to the lawn, putting them in the curb where they shouldn't be, on the ground, on the road. And we need help from our people in the town to take care of it. You know, in front of your house, just watch. If major rain comes up, make sure your DIs are open. I mean, we're limited to how many people we have to go out and clean these DIs. And we were out there doing it during the storm, trying to get these things open. But it really helps when the public helps. It would really make this a lot easier and we'd have less flooding. So it's just part of the big picture.
Also, with the climate change, I'm just going to bring that up. If we really have to start, when we calculate these numbers, how big a pipe and how much drainage you're putting in, we probably have to start considering that, because it seems like we're heading in that trend when you look at the 4 years. And I know you did a lot of work at the Toulon area, and that really seemed to have done the trick over there.
Exactly, yeah, right, exactly. We talked about this in the one meeting we had. If you draw a straight line from the North Transit Hill area over to the Wallace area, Powers Falls right in the middle of that. And there was really no issues in that.
And you put a lot of extra pipes, receivers, and it made a big difference in that bowl area. So I think that we have to consider that for the future also.
Yeah, again, I'm just gonna note that we are limited sometimes in some of these areas based on the outfall that's there. Okay?
I
Some of
understand.
it's great because we can go right to the slate bottom creek, and we really weren't restricted by outfall there. Some of these neighborhoods, we got restricted as to where we outfall in before it gets ultimately
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's understood.
With the Wallace project, just want to know a little bit about things the board has to do in the next few weeks, if anything, to make sure we can move that along as quickly as possible. So is there anything we have to do in terms of making decisions on funding and appropriations, get contracts for materials, things like that?
Great question, Councilman Noah. One of the first things we should do, and that's one of them because Rachel's request is due this Friday, Rachel, I believe, for her appropriation for her department, and that neighborhood, Wallace and One Kennedy, falls into Cdbg neighborhoods. I noted that on the handout last night. So that is one of the areas, let's say we go to that route that I mentioned here, that we might want to tap into Rachel's help. She's been great asset for us with the Alcon and Andrews project we're undertaking right now, and that would be similar, that I'd like to marry them together on that particular project if possible. So if we could kind of talk about that, at least, put the request into Rachel so she can do her due diligence to make that happen next year, that would be amazing.
I'd be happy to talk with Rachel tomorrow and kind of move that along.
Absolutely, yep.
But it sounds like this whole board can agree about the Wallace and Lemoyne road reconstruction, correct? I mean, is anybody opposed to it, that we could give Mark direction at least?
Absolutely not. I mean, I've talked with residents there personally
Me
here at the
too.
meeting, and their emails, phone calls, repeated phone calls with a few individuals on that. I mean, and we've talked internally about some of the issues there. I think that's one we got to move on.
Especially with that Harlem Road area and the Grunner Road issues that you've been trying to fix, and I appreciate that. So can we at least give Mark the direction? And of course, he'll put the board resolutions in for the equipment, but I think those should be on the list for next year.
Right, which again is great, because as you know, when we start writing our contracting partner contracts after the holidays in January, again, we need to have a final decision so we can clearly define the scope of work that we need to do next year. So again, we're transparent that way with the state office, so that's great, yeah.
And I'd like to see some of the, still the 2021 list finished up, mainly that Mayberry, east and west, and Fradine. Does everybody know where that is? Off of French Road, west of the Toulon project. It's very low also there.
And that's one of the things I think we mentioned at the last meeting we had, Diane, that again, if we see an easement with our neighbor there, Idlewood, that would definitely help that cause, make it more feasible to construct. Right now, you're asking the water to do a major U-turn, which it doesn't want to do during the spring rain event, it just wants to go right to Slate Bottom, correct?
Right, and we have a lot of those raised ranches there also, and that seems to be the problem.
Right.
And it's also in a
We'll
bowl.
try to expedite, conversation with them to see if we can't, make that work, and then we'll reach out to John in his office to, make that work on paper so we can hopefully get that together when we get.
So is everybody okay at least to start on those three, plus finish up from what's left over from 2021?
Yeah.
Do you suggest we consider, is this enough for now, or should we consider?
That's plenty, Diane, yeah, because like I said, the consent order, as you know, is growing by the day, not.
Yes.
With our pilot study that we have to do on the private side of things, we have to get going on that. Plus, we have some shakeup in our office that we need to get.
Yes,
back up as well.
let's hope.
So yeah, absolutely, that's definitely doable, but that's the high end of our.
And the ARPA funds are going to help us with that, and some applications we're looking at too for more grant funding to help with that DEC consent order.
Correct.
So I know Pat's been working on that for us. And okay, do you want to bring anything else to our attention right now?
No, I think that's
It's a good start, so you can start bidding those projects out at least.
Real quick, there was something you sent to us, I believe it was this morning, relative to the dump site. Have there been any conversations with anyone on the board about that? Because I know you and I haven't had an opportunity to speak just yet there. And it might have been brought up in passing in the past or something like that, but how are things going in terms of direction to address that issue?
That again, Brian, is going to be a major issue for us. The site we had been using for the last 12 years has reached its life for us, okay? So essentially located in town, it's all clean, fill material we take off of our construction projects. But as you know, our town is pretty built out. There's not a lot of open areas in there. And then we have the concerns, again, how do we take our trucks might be able to do, but again, I would ask that we expedite this capital meeting that we need to have.
Mhm.
And that's definitely something we need to discuss, absolutely.
Hey, Mark, they're doing that, solar thing here in Depew.
Yeah.
They're looking, it sounds like they're looking for a lot of dirt. If they're paying for the trucking, can we load them and get it out of there? That'd give us some room, right?
Looking for it, I'm sure we can have that conversation, but yeah, that's, again, gonna be permitted to the DC and all those things, you know how that goes, but that's the conversation I'd be more than happy to have, to see if we can't make something work, sure, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else in the ward? All right, well, thanks for coming tonight and clarifying some things, and hopefully you can get started on some of this stuff.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Next, we have Rachel Straker here to present the additional Cdbg CARES Act funding, additional funding.
I just wanted to take a couple minutes. We're calling for a public hearing tonight. We've been made aware of another funding source, CARES Act funding, and the Cheektowaga Economic Development Corporation inquired about us applying for additional funds on their behalf to assist the businesses in the town of Cheektowaga with their COVID-related issues and get them back up and running. So there's additional Community Development Block Grant CARES Act funds available through New York State. So we wouldn't be directly dealing with HUD, we would be going through New York State for these funds. Up to $500,000 through the New York State Homes and Community Renewal Office. Like I mentioned, the purpose of the funds is to help communities or help businesses in the community come back from the pandemic, the issues, the staffing issues, anything associated, provide funding to them, whether it be in the form of a grant or a low, extremely low interest loan, just to help them come back up to speed and hopefully help them thrive into the future. I did ask Christina Groff here briefly to discuss the need as far as businesses go with these funds. So Christina, if you could just step up for a minute, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, just to reiterate a lot of the challenges that were already discussed earlier today, Councilmember Nowak highlighted several of them. Our small business community is dealing with them as well. So when we were made aware of the opportunity for this pool of CARES Act funding to be offered to entitlement communities like Cheektowaga to be able to go directly through the state, it certainly would be the added benefit. The way that it could work if the town chose to apply on behalf of the Economic Development Corporation, then those funds, if awarded, would be able to be granted from the town through the CEDC. And then the CEDC would be responsible for program delivery, for marketing the program, and the necessary procurement on that end as well.
What would they be doing actually with this funding?
Yeah, so the benefit and what we've reviewed a few other programs. The city of North Tonawanda received an award through the same funding, and they have a hybrid grant and loan program. So the fact that we already have the mechanism in place and the structure in place through the CEDC's existing revolving loan fund program, ideally what we would like to do is be able to have a hybrid grant loan fund. So for example, if we set a guidepost of a maximum of say $50,000 that we'd be able to offer to small businesses in the community, and small business as far as this program would be defined as 25 or fewer employees, we could say the grant amount would be up to $25,000 with the ability, if necessary, to procure a low interest loan of up to $50,000. Again, those are guideposts, and what I'd like to see is to be able to have those conversations with the members of the town council, certainly with Rachel's team, who I agree to the comments earlier. She's been a tremendous asset, and I enjoy working with the team. So that would be, in a nutshell, what that program could look like. The benefit, I guess, just to add additional context there, to granting that to the CEDC versus the town running the program separately, is that any loans that would be distributed, when they're repaid to the Economic Development Corporation, become unrestricted funds that the CEDC could then turn around and utilize for other programming that would align with its mission. So we could look at job training programs for the community. We could look at research and demographic data studies and things of that nature. So I think certainly would be an added benefit overall. Any other
And
questions?
just to add to that, one of the key things with this funding is job creation. So depending on how it's set up, the businesses have to create jobs as a result of this funding. So it could be one job for every $10,000 given, it could be one, HUD allows one for up to every 35,000, but we have the discretion to set it up. So as a result of these businesses getting funding, they will also be required to create jobs and hire people.
In this particular, the flexibility is there to retain jobs as well. So it wouldn't solely have to create a new job, as is the case with the traditional CDBG funds that the CEDC uses. It could also be used for payroll to increase and retain their current employment.
So with these funds coming from the state, is it an entitlement, a grant, or is it something we should advocate on behalf of Cheektowaga to get sent our way?
They're still entitlement funds, and they're pretty much the exact same thing that we get directly from HUD. It's just that the state is the go-between. And they actually didn't previously allow entitlement communities to apply for these funds, but they didn't have enough requests for the funding from non-entitlement communities, so they opened it up to us. So as far as the guidelines and the regulations and everything is similar to our regular CDBG funding. It's just that the state is the in-between us and the federal government.
So do you need any help from our grant writer, or you,
No, we do all of our federal stuff in-house, so.
but it's through the state, so something?
Yeah, well, the process, everything is still the same. It's
Oh,
just that
okay.
we have to send it to the state instead of HUD.
Okay. All right, so we're calling for the public hearing, but is the public hearing on this, or is it just the?
No, this is the
thing on-
public, before we can even apply for the funding, the state is mandating that we get public comment. So we're calling for the public hearing tonight, and then once we have the public hearing at the next meeting, then we can actually start working on the application process.
Okay, great, good. Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question about the size limit. We talked about 25 employees or less. If we opened it up beyond 25, would there be a benefit to that? Is there a reason for that? Is the cutoff? If you can get into that a little bit.
Sure, so that's the benchmark that's been designated by the state, but there is some flexibility there. We would need to prove the need if we were to open that up to employers that are larger than 25. That's an opportunity, but there's a little bit more that we'd have to kind of justify on that end, that why should this larger employer have the need for the fund versus other smaller businesses operating in the town.
Any other questions?
Yeah, let's take care of the little guy.
Yeah, we're with you.
Definitely.
Great. Thank you so much for coming and explaining it. Sounds like a great plan. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a need to go into executive session. I'll make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment history of particular persons, the class action opioid litigation, and I also want to add the lease of real property. Do I have a second? Councilmember Pilarski, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We'll be back in time for the 7 o'clock meeting.